here from simpleprogrammer.com. So I am in Florence. Actually, this time I'm really in Florence. I kept on saying I'm in Florence, Italy, but I was outside of Florence in the Tuscany region. I'm giving you kind of the background shot here, but I'll do a little pan around here so you can see what it looks like from this pretty good view. Just getting ready to have some lunch before I explore Florence a bit here. You might be wondering why I'm having lunch. I decided in Italy to go ahead and not do the fasting until 5 like I do all the time. Just for a couple of reasons. One, because I didn't want to miss out on the food here in Italy, and also because I decided to sort of go on a bit of a break, kind of a, I don't want to call it bulking, but kind of a bulking, right? You know, just lifting heavy and increasing calories to increase the metabolism again, because it was getting pretty low, which is you know, kind of counterproductive to everything I'm trying to do. So from time to time I try to get it kick-started again. So I'll be ready to hit it hard once I get back to San Diego. Anyway, I wanted to do a video. Someone asked me this question. I get this question quite a few times about the best way to, like, essentially, I'm trying to think of how to phrase this, but essentially it's how do I actually get stuff done when I spend so much time organizing things and not taking action? Like, how to avoid the inaction and the planning too much, right? And so some people take action without planning at all, and that's no good. But a lot of people, they just like plan and plan and plan and research and research and research and come up with ideas, and then they actually never end up doing anything, or they have so limited time to do things that they don't make much progress, right? And so my philosophy on it is that you want to be spending as much of your time as possible taking action, but if you're climbing the ladder, you have to make sure that the ladder is leaned up against the right wall, because if you spend a lot of time and effort with climbing the ladder only to find out that it's not leaning against the right wall, you could be wasting a lot of time and effort, especially if you devote a lot into it. So I'm kind of taking a few different questions and comments that I've gotten and sort of combining them together. But essentially the problem that is having a lot of things that you want to do, right? And some people have mentioned that they had these fitness plans, they had these career plans, you know, side projects, all of these kind of things. And what ends up happening is that they've got all this stuff planned out, and they spend so much time reorganizing those plans and not enough time in the day to actually take action on the stuff, and it's just too overwhelming. There's too much stuff going on. So there's a few things I'd lay out here for you as some advice on how to do this. So the first thing is that I've done a video on this. I think I did this video on wearing multiple hats. That might have been the one where I talked about the manager hat and the worker hat, but I'll kind of rehash this again. So the first thing is to understand is that what you have to do is you aim and then fire, right? You plan and then take action, and you don't mix the two together, right? So let's think about, and this also, I'll give you kind of an analogy here that also applies to the importance of planning correctly ahead of time before you take action. So imagine that you're firing a cannon, right? So, you know, firing a cannon is kind of a lot of work, right? You gotta, first of all, you gotta like load up you gotta position the cannon, right? And wheel that thing over to wherever you're gonna fire from. And you gotta, you know, put gunpowder in there, stuff that in there. I don't know what the stuffing that they put in there. You gotta put in the, you know, the little wick to light it. You gotta load up the cannonball in there with the little plunger thing, right? And then, you know, you're positioning that thing, and then you gotta light the thing, and then you gotta wait for it to go, and then you know, so there's a lot of work in there. So you don't want to, you know, fire the cannon without aiming, because you're gonna have to reload that sucker. It's gonna take a long time, right? Plus, it's kind of destructive to just shoot cannons in the wrong direction. But so it's important to take the time to aim correctly. But once you've done that, right, it doesn't make sense. You can't just keep on readjusting it, right? So you should, you know, probably figure out, okay, this is where I'm aiming the cannon, all right, and this is where I'm going to shoot it, and then you do all the work. You load it all up, and then you just follow the actions and fire, right? And so what I'm saying here is, I don't know if it's the best analogy, but what I'm saying is that you gotta take some amount of time, right? And you gotta aim. You got to figure out what is the thing that you're trying to do and what's the best plan for that. And you got to expect that your plan's not always going to succeed, right? At some point it's going to fail, there's going to be curveballs and stuff, but you come out with the plan. And when you come up with the plan, based on the best of your knowledge, you've got it to have some kind of duration, right? So maybe I've planned ahead for the day, maybe I've planned ahead for 2 weeks. Well, it doesn't matter what the interval is, but whatever that, and different things that you plan out are going to have different intervals, right? So you know, if some things you plan out long term, some things short term, the more detailed it is, the more short term it is, okay? But that overhead should not be greater than the time of action that you take. So what I mean by this is that, you know, if you plan for 10 minutes, that should give you, 50 minutes of doing something. If you plan for 50 minutes and are only taking action for 10 minutes, that's probably not good. Now, there may be some situations where you got to aim a lot more than firing, but if you spend your life aiming a lot more than firing, you're not going to hit much. Okay, so the point is though that you've got to take this this aiming time, right? And when you're planning, that's all you do. You don't take action, you don't do anything else, you just plan, right? And if that means you have to sit down at the beginning of every day, right? I plan every day, I plan every week, right? I do long-term planning as well. And when I'm in planning mode, I'm not taking action, I'm just planning. And when I'm done with the planning, right, and I might take more time, I might take the extra time to aim real carefully with that cannon. That's my extra planning time. But and the reason why is because when I'm done, all I'm going to be doing is taking action. And so when you're done with the planning, you have to resist the temptation to re-aim again or re-plan, because you put on that one hat, right? Like I said, the planning hat, the entrepreneur hat, the sort of boss hat. And then when you're done, then you take off that hat and you put on the other hat, which is the hat of the worker bee. You're taking action, you're doing, and you're not evaluating, you're not judging, you're not looking at the results, right? And eventually you will, but that's when you put on that manager kind of entrepreneur type of hat again, where you're planning and you're looking at results, right? So let's say that you give you a concrete example here. Let's say that you come up with a 2-week plan, that's something you're going to do in 2 weeks. Maybe you spend 2 hours planning that out for your next 2 weeks. Okay, you spend all that time planning it out. So what I'm going to do, right, on Monday I'm going to do this, and I did this a lot with my Pluralsight course. So you can check out my Pluralsight course. I did 55 courses in about less than 3 years. And the reason why I was able to do that was because I would spend the beginning of the week planning it out. So I'd just plan out for maybe an hour or two what I'm going to do for the next 2 weeks to get this course done. And I'd know exactly on this day, this is what I'm doing this, I'm going to take this action, and I have all those things planned out. Then what happens is, once I'm done with that planning for the 2 hours, then I take that 2 weeks and I execute that plan. And I don't care what's happening, or if I think that the plan's no good anymore, it doesn't matter. I'm just executing that plan because I'm not evaluating and thinking about it, because I already spent that time, right? And then at the end of the 2 weeks, then I go back and I look at what I accomplished and did during that 2 weeks, and then I look at the plan and I revise the plan for the next time and have a new iteration. Now, a lot of people get tripped up. This seems like pretty basic common sense knowledge, but a lot of people get tripped up because what they end up doing is that they end up, they spend the 2 hours planning, okay, and then they start executing, and they're like, oh, maybe I don't know if that plan is so good, right? So then the next day they spend another hour planning and reorganizing the plan, and every single day they end up reorganizing the plan, and so they're never actually going anywhere. It's like, they've charted a course on the map and they started down the path, and then they're like, oh, I don't know if this is the best path, maybe we should go back and try that other path, and they keep on going back and trying the other path rather than just charging forward. So my best advice would be spend the time to plan adequately up front, so that you're sure of the path that you're going to take as far as it is, as far as anyone can be, and then take the path. And the less that you're sure of the plan, the smaller the interval of the planning should be, right? So what do I mean by that? So if you have very little confidence in what you're supposed to do or what the plan is, or there's a lot of variables left in it, then only plan in a short advanced window. But plan in that advanced window, take those actions, take those steps, and then execute them, and then evaluate those results. If you have something that you're pretty sure on, you're pretty confident in, right? You know, for example, a lot of my traveling planning, when I'm planning the trips like this, where I'm here in Italy and stuff, I know it's 6 months in advance. There's not a lot of curveballs or variables here. I'm booking planes, I'm booking tickets, I'm booking hotels or whatever I need to do in transportation and things like that. So I can plan that way in advance for a long time, and then I'm just gonna execute on that plan, right? Imagine how crazy and how horrible that a trip would be if I started replanning it every single day of the trip. That'd be horrible, right? It wouldn't make sense at all. So you got to use common sense here. And I didn't really get into the topic of, you know, breaking things up, but I'll just touch on this real quickly, which is if you're being overwhelmed by all this stuff that you're trying to plan out and do and not taking action, simplify. You can't do it all, but once you got to get systems in place. So you plan. Part of planning is developing systems. So you develop a system, especially for something that you're going to take a lot of action on. You go through, you take the action, you reevaluate, and you keep on going until you get that into a smooth system that allows you to execute rapidly, right? So for example, with the Pluralsight courses, with these videos, what I did was I started off just taking that thing, planning it out, you know, going through the process, executing it, improving the process until I could rapidly churn out stuff. And then I moved on to the next thing. I didn't try to do 50 things at one time. All right, hope that helps you. If it does, let me know. Leave a comment below if you have any questions about this. I know this is kind of a complex topic to talk about because, and I'm being a little abstract here on purpose. So if you have any specific questions, you know, leave a comment below, and make sure you click the subscribe button below to subscribe to the channel. Click the bell to make sure you don't miss any videos. I'll talk to you next time. Take care.